You can't have this massive ego and make it all about you and me, and I, and I'm awesome. And yeah, you are awesome, but that you got a guest there for a reason. Make sure you shine a light on them. The minute you realize it's not about you and it's everything to do with your guests, that's when there's going to be a complete turnaround in your listeners and the languaging and the messaging that's been sent out and what they understand your show to be.
Is this about the accent? Is that what it was?
Totally
is that what it was?
Accent, yes.
Is that what it was? You didn't like the accent?
I love the accent.
Kay says, it's not about you, mate. It's not about you. Well, I did feel a little bit like, it's a little bit too much. Like if they don't know that I don't speak like that, it's fine. But I can't see really carrying it on completely. Like it works if no one knows, and probably if they're new listeners and they have no idea, then they just think that I'm English, and that just leave it at that.
But do you know what really sucks is that I feel like you've got a better British accent than I do now. How did that work out?
Well, I think that's because, darling, you're not really working on it. Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry Seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about.
Yes.
Your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hersh Rephun.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast. Yes.
With me today is Kay Suthar. Kay is in the podcasting business, which is why it's appropriate that we're on a podcast today. She is coming to us from across the pond of America. I'm in America, as you know. Kay, where are you located today?
I am in lovely, sunny UK London.
She's in London, England. Yes, famous for Tower of London and other things. Big Ben, We're just having fun with you. But listen, she has a brand called Make Your Mark. And, of course, it's about making your mark in podcasting, which those of us who do it are trying to do. But we also have businesses behind the podcast that we are trying to put forth to the public. And the hardest thing to do is to really stand out. I talk about that a lot. I say, you've got plateau fever, mate. You can't break through to the next level. You've got to do something. So the question is, what do you do? And Kay is expert in that category. Kay. There's our first edit. I said Kate for whatever reason.
You know what? You're not the first one to say that. Other people call me Kate too, and I'm like, I don't know where they get that from.
Yeah, you know what they call me? Sod off. That's what they call me. I don't know what it stands for, but I'll get the idea once they give me a nice boot in the butt. So we're gonna have a little laughter, but there's nothing wrong with laughter. I think it's good. I think it sustains us. Let's start with your one-floor elevator pitch.
Oh, yeah. So I help people build a brand, build their authority, build visibility by using the power of podcasting, whether that be going on as a guest or launching your own podcast.
Now, launching your own podcast is sticky business. This is not for the faint-hearted. They have a whole... I know it from doing it with my shows. Mm-hmm. You know it. You have your own podcast, obviously. Yes. What I'm doing now is I'm doing kind of a diagnostic thing. Ooh, okay. That's kind of what I do. I talk to people about their brands. I get to know them. What was your entree into the world of podcasting? Oh, my
goodness. You know what? It was absolutely by accident. And so what happened is when the pandemic first happened, right, I was actually in the events industry, right, live events, flying here, there, everywhere, doing live events. And then the pandemic happened, I was like, do you know what? Just because of the pandemic, you don't just stop promoting yourself. You stop promoting your business. And so I was like, well, I'm going to see how this whole podcasting world works out, right? Because people are doing it. They're getting on there. They're getting clients, leads and sales and all that good stuff. And I was like, well, let me try getting booked on podcasts. And so I started applying, right? And Hersh, you know what? I wasn't hearing back from anybody. It was like tumbleweed. And I'm thinking to myself, well, other people are doing this. How am I, what's going on? Why are they not even to me, like, I would have even appreciated at that time a no, but I wasn't even getting a no. It was just nothing at all. And so I started tweaking how I'm approaching people, how, what my messaging is, what my pitch will be. And after 2 to 3 months, all of a sudden I got booked on 100 podcasts in 60 days, right?
Wow.
So after doing that, you can imagine my business looked very different to when I first started getting on podcast. But then what started happening, Hersh, was people were asking me, how the hell are you getting on podcasts? What are you doing? And so at that point, I was like, oh, that sounds like a coaching program, right?
Right.
And so then I started teaching people, coaching people on the steps that I took to get booked on 100 podcasts in 60 days. And then they started seeing results too. Now, all of a sudden, I'm getting on all of these podcasts, and now the podcasters are asking me, hey, Kay, what's the name of your podcast? And I was like, oh, crap, I don't have one. So at that point, I was like, oh, my goodness, I better go create one. But because I've been on so many podcasts at this point, what I was actually doing was the experience and different platforms I've seen other podcasts use, and I've jumped on there. I kind of started researching, putting bits and pieces together, right? And so all of a sudden, I've got this podcast. Now I can tell everyone I have this podcast. But since then, since I first launched my podcast, it's come a long way. And Hersh, you know this because I've totally rebranded, taken a different direction. And my initial podcast was actually called Uncensored Society. And the reason why I named it Uncensored Society, because initially I was actually promoting that business. But podcasting has taken a complete different turn. And then that's when I decided that I'm actually going to be launching my own podcast agency called Make Your Mark Podcast Agency, right? And so all of a sudden, the business that I went out to promote is not the business that I'm in. And it was only because so many people were asking me about different aspects of podcasting. And I saw a need in the market. And that, and put it in short, that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now.
It's too late for in short, love. There's no going back to in short. To put it succinctly, and then you read the Gettysburg Address and War and Peace and so forth. No, I love it. It's true. We don't always decide what we're going to be known for or what we're going to be really good at. We just get asked to do it. And when you get asked to do things over and over again, you get a sense that, well, first of all, you could be doing it wrong. But they could be said, try again, go again. How big is your operation? What is your operation like?
Okay, so what we do is, like I was saying, we not only help people get booked on podcasts, right? But we also help people launch their own podcast. And what that looks like is we do the entire production for individuals, for these podcasters, so they don't have the headache of having to do the editing and the graphics and building social media posts so they can actually promote each one of their episodes. All they have to do is go ahead, create content, send it to us, and we will take on all the headache so they don't have to.
So done for you. You do everything. They don't have to worry about it. Mm-hmm. They show up, they pop on the mic, and do they have to have some kind of on mic, on camera background or presence or what do they need to make themselves work in a podcast situation?
So it's really funny that you say that, because I get so many people saying to me, I want to start my own podcast. And I'm like, fantastic. And I say to them, all right, so how many podcasts have you been on as a guest? And they're like, 0. And I'm like, okay, how many podcasts have you listened to? And they're like, 0. And I'm like, well, you're not ready to start your own podcast. Okay, if you haven't been a guest on podcast first, right, and I say a minimum of 20 podcasts, you're not ready to start your own podcast. If you've not listened to any, you definitely are not ready to start a podcast, right? So you need to have some sort of an idea as to what a podcast is, right? What does it sound like? How do different people out there do it? You need to be interviewed on podcasts, because you're just going in the blank canvas. It's very, very difficult to help someone, coach someone that knows nothing about podcasting, has no experience, right? Wants to build their brand using podcasting, but knows nothing about it. And so you need to be at least interviewed on podcasts 20 times, listen to a few podcasts before you even launch yours.
That's great advice. I had been on some. I had done, some hosting and some other things. It's a little different being a stand-up comedian and, obviously doing a lot of dialects and things like that. Being on the mic was not like a crazy thing to do, but it did come after listening to many, many, many podcasts, being on a few. And I'm now getting into doing many, many more. And I've been on your podcast, which I really enjoyed. You're a wonderful host. No, that was great. And I think that the more that people become comfortable, the easier it is. It's like anything else. It's a comfort situation. Because I'm interested in the aspects of the technology and stuff, but if that stuff is taken care of and you got all that done for them, they still have to worry about performance. They have to worry about what about guests, finding really good guests. And, how do you frame podcasting as an objective, like as an objective-oriented ROI? This is what you want to get out of your podcast. How do you lay that out?
So what I've noticed with a lot of people is a lot of them that want to start their own podcast is because they, first of all, want that celebrity status. They want to have that global reach, right? And so, having your own show will definitely help you do that. And I've been hearing that a lot of them don't like, I guess, all these rules that different podcasters have, because everyone's got different structure, different processes, right? And so when you start your own podcast, you are 100% in control. You make up your own rules. You say what you want, how you want, right? Which is another thing that I'm seeing that's exactly what they want. They don't want to stand by these rules. And I absolutely love it, because that's what making your mark and being an absolute rebel is all about, right? It's just being authentic, being real, and just going for it. And so you mentioned, you got to know how to be a good interviewer, a good host. All of that, Hersh, comes by doing, right? And also remembering that as a host, it is your show, but you're there to help the guests and shine a light on them, right? You can't have this massive ego and make it all about you and me, and I, and I'm awesome. And you are awesome, but that you got a guest there for a reason. Make sure you shine a light on them. The minute you realize it's not about you and it's everything to do with your guests, that's when there's going to be a complete turnaround in your listeners and the languaging and the messaging that's been sent out and what they understand your show to be.
This is about the accent. Is that what it was?
Totally.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Is that what it was? You didn't like the accent?
I love the accent.
Kay says, it's not about you, mate. It's not about you. Well, I did feel a little bit like, it's a little bit too much. Like if they don't know that I don't speak like that, it's fine. But I can't see really carrying it on completely. Like it works if no one knows, and probably if they're new listeners and they have no idea, then they just think that I'm English, and that just leave it at that.
But do you know what really sucks is that I feel like you've got a better British accent than I do now. How did that work out?
Well, I think that's because, darling, you're not really working on it.
Okay.
You go out there every day. You're born there. You take it for granted. You don't really polish it up. You don't try different things. You have no role models as well. I have certain role models for certain dialects. I could do my Maggie Smith. I could take it to like more of a Maggie Smith and go that way and, and take things a certain way. If you bring Maggie Smith, just about 7 or 8 decades younger, then you get Emma Thompson. And then it becomes more like that. But of course, Emma Thompson can do other accents. And then if I could just be extremely, I don't know. Anyway, there's a whole bunch you could do. But that is why probably mine is better than yours, because you don't practice. You're just always doing it like it's second nature.
Oh, okay. Just go, just off the whim.
Okay. Do you want to play a game? You want to play a little game?
What kind of game?
You could win a prize. Okay, so this is new.
Okay.
We just started doing this. This is to your point, Kay, about how when you have your own show, you can say, okay, I want to do halfway through the episode, I want to shake things up and I want to do a game. And I thought of complicating this, but I think it's hard enough as it is. The game is simply to name as many brands as you can in 30 seconds.
Wait, what?
And at the end of the season, it could be in any order, it could be any kind of brand, and at the end of the season, whoever's done the most gets one of these, a signed version of this Own Your Happy t-shirt from the kosher brand, thekosherbrand.com. And they enlisted the artists Corey, Maddie, and Jeremy Nova from LA, up and coming artists. And they created this with their signature styles, but they'll actually sign the shirt for you. And then we'll also donate some money to the Keep It Kosher Project, which supports artists, which is a nonprofit, and supports street artists and gives them places to paint and materials to paint with. So
that is super awesome. I so won that shirt. I'm winning this.
Well,
wait,
okay.
Can I use Google?
Well, why waste? Well, don't wait. We might as well wait to. Of course, you can use Google. You can't read. You can't use Google to find brands. Don't start looking up brands on your phone.
I'm doing that. I'm looking at.
No, you can't look at it. She wants to
I'm being smart here. Remember, you got to work smart, not hard. So
that's true. But you got but you got to work fair and not be an arsehole. That's the other way. All right. So when you're ready, I'm not going to tell you how many you get because I don't have the instruments here for that. But I will listen to it back and do the counting. But anyway, don't cheat. I was going to make people blindfold themselves, but we have to be able to trust you. Okay. So when I say go, you start, and I'll tell you when it's 30 seconds. And just my only advice is don't think. Don't question anything. Just whatever brand comes up.
Oh my God,
okay?
Pressure.
All right, go.
Apple, Dyson, Nike, Adidas, Prada, Burberry, oh my God, Nescafe. I don't know if you have that in the UK. Twinings, Fairy Liquid, Vanish. What else is out there? Oh my God. How am I forgetting this?
That's it. That's time. You were doing so well, love. You know what? You were doing better than the last person. But what I've told people is every you have to like block that out. But see, it's hard, right?
It is hard.
I mean, you probably got about 12,
really?
10 maybe. I don't know. I'll go back and look. But I think it's a fun game to try. I know I got stumped. I got stumped when I was doing it.
Do you know what? I'm totally taking that. Can I take that?
Well, it's as long as you call it the Yes Brand Challenge. I'm gonna write that down.
Okay,
it'll be the Yes Brand Challenge, and then you can cross promote, and then we have a deal, and you can say, we're doing the Yes Brand Challenge too.
All right,
and then everybody's doing
I'm gonna note that down. I love that idea.
Okay, now to get back on the Make Your Mark track here. So, what is the most important thing in this business of podcasting? What do you think it is that a business person who doesn't have, they don't have the fame bug, and they're not looking for fame. They're just looking at their bottom line. Mm. What is the biggest selling point of podcasting versus other things, versus buying media space, but banner ads, all that stuff?
Oh my goodness, there's several here, right? So not only do you get to have a global reach at the comfort of your own home, right? So it's not expensive. You're saving time. You can get booked on more podcasts because there is no travel time. And that when your podcast is out there, your episode is out there, it's evergreen. It's out there forever. So people can listen to it 1 year down the line, right? But what I really love about podcasting is I get to speak to another human being in front of me. I get to speak with you, Hersh. I get to build a relationship. And not only, is there a conversation going on right now while we're doing this recording, but we had a conversation off camera. We're going to continue having conversations off camera after this episode, right? I get to know you. I get to build a relationship, find out what else you're doing, right? And how we can actually help each other with both of our brands, right? Is there a partnership there? Is there a way that maybe I can reach your audience, you can reach my audience outside of just doing podcasts? There's always ways of seeing how you can get to know that person, how you can help them. And even if you can't help them, if they don't want to do their own podcast, find out what their challenges are and see if there's anyone in your network that you can then refer them to.
So podcasting is as much about networking as it is about entertaining or engaging an audience or even informing an audience.
That's right. I think that's one of the mistakes that people tend to make. They think that they, go on a podcast and it's all about them, right? It's not about the host. It's not about the guest. It's about the audience, right? And so you're there to really build relationship, not just with the audience, but with the podcast host as well. Don't make it all about you. Actually build relationships with every person that you come across, especially in podcasting, because they're not just podcasters. They have their own businesses. Find out about that. Yeah, actually kind of pay an interest in what else they're doing and how you can actually serve them.
This brings up a good question, which is, what is the line between a business owner or a business person who has a podcast as a marketing tool, a networking tool, and a podcaster whose primary thing is podcasting? Like, let's say Joe Rogan is a podcaster, basically. The same way Jimmy Kimmel's a talk show host, that more than a comedian, let's say. So Joe Rogan is a podcaster. That's the way he makes most of his money. Yeah. So what's the difference going in?
Okay, so first of all, I guess you need to think about why you want to start a podcast or why you started a podcast. Is it to build a business? Is it to make the money, to make the sales? Or is it that you just want to have that celebrity fame? You just want to be known as a podcaster? You want that whole Joe Rogan status and you're not really thinking about the sales and the money and all of that? And if it is just because you want to do a podcast because everybody else is doing it but you put no thought into it, it then turns into a hobby, Hersh. Right? It's a hobby. And I say this about businesses. When people say to me, oh, I have a business, and I'm like, okay, fantastic. How much money are you making? I've not made any. Well, it's not a business until you start making money. It's a hobby, right? And so I look at podcasts the same way. When you're getting on podcasts, whether, you're a guest or you have your own podcast show, if you're making money, then it's a podcast that is building in revenue. It's an actual business, right? And you're not just marketing, you're not just giving value, you're not just giving content. You've also built another kind of business alongside your main business. If you're not, and you're just going there entertaining, you're not putting much thought into it, and you're just doing it because it's fun, it's now a hobby. It's not a business. You're not taking it seriously.
When you talk about it as a business, it could make no money as a podcast, but make a lot of money for the host and the guests. It can be very productive and be very lucrative in the sense of, oh, I was on this many podcasts now, like you were telling us. Now my business is completely taken off because people know who I am. So there's that profitability. But I think a lot of people who are listening, because the people who are listening to this show are probably people who own their own business or are in the C-suite of a business and leading it and trying to figure out how to get it to the next level and what they can do with their image to make it bigger. And so this is why you're kind of a perfect guest for this, because one of the things they may not have tried yet is podcasting. But I think their biggest fear is going to be who's it going to reach? Who does it have to reach in order for it to serve them as a business owner looking to expand their exposure?
Well, this is where you see, research has to go behind, you know, the podcast before you reach out to them and find out whether they are reaching your audience. If they're not reaching your audience, then you don't need to go onto that podcast, because it's not going to serve you in any way or bring you any leads in. However, again, if you're doing it for fun, then fair enough, get on as many podcasts as you want. You know, it doesn't matter whoever says yes, right? But if you're doing it because you want to reach a certain targeted market out there, then you need to make sure you're reaching out to those particular podcasts. And yeah, it does take time to do the research, but you got to do it to make sure that it actually fulfills in the long run.
Yeah, it has to fulfill your goal as a guest, or if you're a host. So talking about your own brand, and I love Make Your Mark, because that is very succinct and very clear, and it applies to whatever the goal is. You know, make your mark as a host, make your mark as a business person, make your mark. You could own a dry cleaners and be having your podcast, and you're making your mark as, you know, although dry cleaners try to get rid of the mark most of the time. But let's just say, I don't know why that came up as an example. Poor example, poor choice of words. I'm sorry about that.
But do you know, can I tell you a secret? Can I tell you why I decided to call it Make Your Mark?
Yeah.
And that's because pretty much all my life, people have always said to me, you don't think like everybody else. Like, you're weird, right? Like, what do you mean you're going to quit your day job? What do you mean you don't know what you're doing next? Like, all of this stuff, right? They've been telling me. And even my parents have been like, yeah, you're weird. I don't know where this has come from. And I'm like, well, you guys brought me up. What do you mean? But anyway, right? So I thought making a mark was ideal, because I seem to have gone out of my own wheelhouse and done things differently and made my mark to the world in a way that I didn't even realize I was doing. Right? And really kind of coming out of culture, coming out of the society, right? Going against the rules, against the grain, and saying, no, hold on a second, I'm going to do it this way. Why? That doesn't make sense. Well, I'm doing it anyway. Right?
Right.
And so I'm always like, I'm looking for that rebel in business. I want to be working with, you know, leaders that aren't afraid to come out of their comfort zone and do something different to make their mark in their world. That's how they're going to do it. Don't be the sheep. Don't follow everybody else. Be completely and outrageously different.
Yeah. I mean, those things that you're saying, that kind of, you know, forcefulness of your message is, you know, what really resonates with me, because a lot of people have acumen in certain areas, and, you know, obviously you want competence and you want people who understand the industry they're you know, operating in and helping you with and helping you navigate. But more than anything, the passion that you put behind, you know, be outrageous is the kind of challenge that I think a lot of people are daunted by, because you don't even, if someone isn't an outrageous personality, and they say, look, I'm pretty buttoned up, I'm organized, I'm thoughtful, I'm intelligent, whatever, but I'm not gonna rock anything. I'm not gonna go on the air and be wild, you know. What do you say to those people when what do you look for in them that what could make them a rebel if they're really pretty much, you know, not a wild personality?
So, do you know what? The number one thing is, I don't like people coming on being all prim and proper, you know, talking very proper and just not being authentic. Just be raw, just be real, just tell me how it is, right? Give it to me straight. That's what I want to hear. That's what people want to hear. This is what gets me stopping in my tracks and actually listening to the person, because I can see how raw and real they're being, right? And when you become raw and real, you then become freaking relentless in business, right? You're just going to go for it. And so you are going to be that risk taker. You're not going to be listening to everybody else. Yeah, you're a human being, which means you're going to have fear, right? We're all going to have fear at one point, but that doesn't stop you, and you just go for it and see what happens. If it doesn't work out, you just switch.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm looking for.
So it's a battle against fear, and it's a battle against norms and holding back. You're right that what you're really trying to get people to do is take what's theirs, right? Take what you want, because there you can hide behind propriety. I think a lot of people do that. I mean, I've done it even when you're in a service industry and you're doing, PR, or you're doing something like that. You're really always putting the client first, and sometimes it's a disservice to them to protect them too much.
Yeah.
You're protecting their image, but you're not letting them really do them, and you're not letting them really be them.
Exactly. And so I just want them to be them. And so I even say, listen, if on an everyday basis the way you talk is by cursing and cussing, do that. Right? I do not stop people from coming onto my show cursing and cussing. If that's how they talk, then that's how you talk. Right? You don't need to put on an act. The only one thing that I do say to people is, okay, I can't have sexist comments, I can't have racist comments, anything like that, or it gets very political, that's what I say no to, right? But I want you to be real when it comes to talking about business, what you did to get there, how you failed, how you overcome them. Just be completely raw.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like a tagline. Do you have a tagline? Do you have a tagline you use?
Yeah, raw, real, and relentless.
Oh, that's good. Raw, real, and relentless is good. Okay. But so what I was thinking is I wrote down a couple of things, but they were not as good as raw, real, and relentless. Like they didn't add anything. Right. And then I just thought, as you were saying, like, some people, if they want to use profanity or if they want to talk a certain way, I want them to talk the way they want to talk.
Yeah.
So I was thinking it would say, make your mark FFS, like as though that's a degree or something, FFS, F.F.S.
Yeah.
And people would say, well, what's the FFS for? And you say, like, for fuck's sake.
I like
Make
it.
your mark, for fuck's sake. So it's like that to me, that's as good as I could come up with in this scenario, because I think that spoke to, well, that's how I would say it. That's how you might say it, but some people don't like it. But if they're curious and they really want to know, and they say, well, what's FFS for? Is that like a union or an organization?
Right.
Like, no, it means make your mark, for fuck's sake. Just do it.
And you know what? Sometimes you're going to come across people that are just like, no, I don't like that. I don't like the cursing and cussing. That's just so rude, bro. But then guess what? They're not my audience.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to be the people that I'm going to be working with. Right? If cursing and cussing is such a no-no for people,
yeah.
To me, I'm just like, but hold a minute, why is it wrong? Right? Who said that cursing and cussing is wrong? Who said shit is a bad word? Who said fuck is a bad word? Where does it say that? Right?
Yeah.
Again, it was society and culture that created that. And what are we all about? Going against all of that. We're not following those rules.
Yeah. See, because the other option would be to say, oh, yes, it's make your mark, FFS. And they say, well, what's that? What does that stand for? And you say, it stands for fear foils sanity. FFS, fear foils sanity. They go, well, I don't know if I really like that. You say, all right, well, it's for fuck's sake. And that's what it is. It's for fuck's sake. Oh, my God. Give me fuck. It's like, but for me, it's the ice. That's the icebreaker.
Yes.
It's the icebreaker. But you're right. We do have to sometimes clear the decks and say, look, you know what? We're not. I love hearing I'm not for everybody. I love when somebody says I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
But really, what it means is, we don't have the energy to break. I'm not a psychologist. My goal is not to break through all of the shit that people went through. I've got enough shit to deal with my own shit to try to understand, and be a valuable contributor to the human race. It's like I got enough to do. I'm not going to figure out, one other person's hang-ups.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's not for everybody. Not everything is for everybody, or it's for nobody.
No.
So, but you've got this very rebellious, very imaginative and energetic brand that I think, personally, it does need to, explode a little bit more. But I know you a little bit, and I think that you also know, well, you can't force that stuff. You can't, if you simulate your own, energy too much, you're being a caricature of yourself. So if you're like, oh, I'm the crazy, I'm the rebel, and then you come on and you got chains and you got your piercings and you got,
that's taking
and you have
whole different level. That's a different torches, show right there, Hersh.
Torches behind you. But if it were you, that would be great. But that's not your style. So it's like, that doesn't work. I do stand behind the FFS thing. I think there's something to it. I think you, because you have that. I like that. Well, thank you. That's just part of the fun. Yeah,
that's why you're called the Yes brand. You
the
come
Yes
up
brand.
With all these fun little things that you can add to your brand that's going to take it to a whole different level.
And you took the Yes brand challenge, which we should now encourage other podcasters to do the Yes brand challenge.
We should make that a thing now. Like, we should do stuff on social media. We should make that a thing. Let's do it.
Okay, so we have a couple things to play around with, and then people who follow us, people who follow Make Your Mark, people who follow Yes Brand will start to see some of these little rebellious tidbits out there. I do think, Kay, there's more to do with social media. Social media has taken like kind of a crappy turn in a lot of ways. Like, it's done more harm than good in so many ways, but that doesn't mean it can't be used for good.
No, that's right. It's everyone's got choices at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
You can either do it on a positive or do it on a negative. Like, that's down to you. And, if you want to kind of decide, oh, social media is bad, you don't want to be on social media, you get all sorts of people on there. Well, do you know what? Just like life, you just make it what it is. Right? You can turn it around and use it for your business and your brand and build it, or you just kind of keep away and don't have any social media presence and just sit there and expect, people to come running to you to throw their cards at you. When that doesn't happen, and then you're going to be sitting there thinking, why I didn't get any sales, is because you're not getting yourself out there. You're not making your mark.
That's right. That's right.
And so, do you know what? When I first told people that I'm going to be starting this podcast agency, people were like, but the podcasting world is dominated by men. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, but you're a woman. I'm like, yeah. Right? And they go, and then you're Indian. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, and you're 4'11". I'm like, yeah. Like, who's going to listen to you when it's dominated by white men in the industry? I'm like, all the more reason to do it. Right? Yeah. But then I use that, right, in a positive way to show people, like, I don't see it like that, right? Like, my color, my gender, my height, it doesn't mean anything, right? If anything, I'm going to use that as a powerful force to kind of blow up in the industry and show people that you can still do this no matter what your culture, your background, wherever you come from, you can still do it. There's no point of hiding away because you think that is a certain stereotype of people that go ahead in that industry and are successful. No, that's not the case. It doesn't matter. If you've got an idea, you want to go for it, then just freaking do it.
I think we always are grateful for those naysayers. Yeah. I mean, whoever this person is really has it in for you, but I don't know if this all came from the same person, but I can tell you right now, they're not a fan. They're not supporting your efforts. But I think we take from that, this idea that something can't be done is sometimes what we need to get started.
Yeah, and that's
You
what
know?
gives me the buzz. When people tell me I can't do something, right? And people have told me that all my life. When I decided to become a police officer, people are like, they're never going to let you in. It's not going to happen, right? And I'm like, watch me. When I decided I was going to become an MMA fighter, they were like, no, that will never work. And I did it. Right? When they told me that there's no way I can work in politics, and then I became a campaign manager for Liberal Democrat during the elections, and I did it. Yeah. Like, just because people tell me not to do it, you know what? I use that as fire. Right? And I show people that it can totally be done.
Well, tell us a little bit before we go about the MMA stuff.
Oh my goodness! So I love to fight. People don't know much about that, but
I should tell you that I love to fight. So if you're down, that's more Maggie Smith. I should tell you that I love to fight. There's nothing I love more than kicking the arse of a mouthy bully.
Beating the shit out of people is so much fun, right? And so, I mean, first of all, I got into like boxing, right, and did Muay Thai, and then found the love of MMA and just getting down and dirty and just beating the shit out of people, you know, and I absolutely loved it. And, you know, one of the things that I love to challenge myself, right? I've always wanted to be, when I was younger, a superhero, right? But there's no university or anywhere where you can actually go and learn that stuff, right? And so I guess I found it in other ways, right? Becoming a police officer, doing MMA, right? And kind of like fighting for good. And so when I did the whole MMA, it was a rush. And I always tried to spar with someone that was bigger than me, right? And also most of them were men. And I was like, yeah, if I can beat the shit out of them, I'm good. I'm winning, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a really, really fun time of life for me until I got really injured and was in hospital and I messed up my entire spine and I was like in a dog collar and the doctor told me if I carry on, then I will end up paralyzed. And so I had to stop.
Wow.
And so where I thought my career was going to be a professional MMA fighter, because I even had my first fight in Thailand booked, right? My coach told me I'm ready. And I was super excited and I was training even harder. And then that happened and I had to completely quit and decide, all right, what am I going to do now?
Yeah. Well, that's one of those things that you see films about it. You see true stories about it. People who had to change that plan, that was often around sports or around something like that, some competitive sport, and an injury, sidelines them. They can't do it. Now they have to rethink their entire plan.
Yeah, Hersh, I mean, it's happened to me so many times. I've changed so many careers. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, oh my goodness. So I did policing. I was an MMA fighter. I was a hairdresser. I was an esthetician. I even learned sign language and interpreted for the deaf, community. Oh my goodness. Like, the list goes on and on and on. And now looking back, the way I see it is every single one of those different careers taught me something, and it was preparing me to become an entrepreneur. Because everything that I did, there was one main sticking point, and that was I wasn't finding leaders, I was finding managers and bosses, right?
Yeah.
And every time I worked for a company, that's where I kind of went head to head, and I was like, this isn't working for me, right? I'm looking for leaders. I'm looking to learn from somebody, and do this the right way. And I remember I was even a union rep, right, for employees.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was fighting different cases for so many different people and had 100% success rate, right?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, because I even studied law and criminology, right? And worked in magistrates court after that and did a few other things as well. And so then I decided to fight for people's cases. Again, this is all kind of stemming from me trying to be the superhero that I've been wanting to be, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm fighting for people. And then it was always something wrong with management, right? They're doing something wrong. They're going against the rules. They're throwing the weight around. And I'm like, no, I want to be around leaders. And then that's where I learned. In corporate, you have bosses, you have managers. But in business, you have leaders. I was like, that's what I need to do. I need to start a business for myself, build my business, and show the corporate world that you don't need to be like this. You can actually be a leader. You can change if you want.
I'm glad that you mentioned the MMA thing, because you just kind of threw it out there, like tossed it off. And then I was like, okay, you're now the sum total of all of these experiences and all of these challenges. These are challenges that you took on, and then there are some that you didn't plan on. And then, but the ones that you took on, steeled you for the ones that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
And,
sure.
So you've offered a lot to our audience, so maybe I'm being greedy, but if there's anything else you want to share with the audience, I'll give you the last word.
So there's one thing I want to share with everybody. And so I'm going to get you to think a little bit. And so, every single person on this planet has the same amount of time, right? Doesn't matter where you're living in the world. We all got the same amount of time. So why is it that some people are making maybe $100 a day, and then you got others that are making millions of dollars a day? And it all comes down to one thing: change. The minute you decide that you're not happy with the way things are and you accept change and you're willing to change, that's when things will turn around, not just in your life, but in your business, as a podcaster, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur.
Alright.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and?
it worked for you,
Yes, then?
subscribe and leave a
Yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.
Yes.